The dim lighting of the hotel room gave the space a soft glow, shadows flickering gently against the walls. The silence stretched between us, heavy and unyielding, yet it carried an intimacy I couldn't deny. I sat on the edge of the sofa, gripping the blanket tightly, doing my best to ignore the way Taehyung's gaze seemed to pierce right through me. "Jungkook," his voice broke the silence, deep and steady, drawing my attention despite myself. "What?" I replied, a little sharper than I intended. He stepped closer, his movements deliberate yet cautious, like he was treading carefully on fragile ground. "I meant what I said last night," he murmured, his tone quiet but firm. "If you tell me, right now, that you feel nothing for me, I'll leave and never bother you again." The weight of his words settled over me like a heavy blanket. Did I still feel something for him? Of course, I did. Every part of me still remembered the way he used to make me feel, the warmth of his touch, the safety of his presence. But could I admit it? "You're being unfair," I whispered, barely able to get the words out. "Unfair?" Taehyung repeated, his eyes softening. "No, Jungkook. What's unfair is knowing you still care but pretending I don't see it in your eyes." I froze when his hand came up to cup my jaw, his thumb brushing against my cheek. The touch was so gentle, so familiar, that I couldn't stop the way I leaned into him, even though I knew I should pull away. "I've missed you," he admitted, his voice breaking slightly. "Every single day, Jungkook." Taehyung. His name escaped my lips before I could stop it, a quiet plea tangled with confusion and longing. "If you want me to stop, I will," he said, his forehead resting against mine. "Just say the word." But I couldn't. I didn't have it in me to push him away anymore. Instead, I found myself gripping the fabric of his shirt, clinging to him as if he were the only thing keeping me steady. That was all it took. His lips met mine in a kiss soft yet full of emotion, regret, longing, and something deeper that neither of us could name. I melted into him, letting go of the walls I had so carefully built. Taehyung's hands rested on my waist, his grip firm but comforting as he guided me backward until I felt the edge of the sofa against my legs. We tumbled down together, his larger frame enveloping me without making me feel trapped. "You're everything to me," he said softly, his voice trembling slightly. "You always have been, Jungkook." My voice cracked, but he silenced me with another kiss, deeper this time, leaving me breathless and overwhelmed. His touch was gentle, his movements slow, as if he was trying to memorize every detail, every moment. He didn't rush, didn't push. He simply let the moment unfold, allowing us both to feel everything we had been holding back for so long. And for the first time in years, I let myself believe that this could be real. That maybe, this time, he wouldn't leave. The night felt endless, yet fleeting, filled with quiet words and unspoken promises. Taehyung didn't need to say much, his actions spoke for him. He was here, fully and completely, and he wasn't going anywhere. It wasn't forgiveness. Not yet. But it was a step. And for now, that was enough. As the night deepened, the tension between us softened into something tender, something raw. Taehyung's presence was like a balm to wounds I thought would never heal, and I let myself lean into it, just for tonight. After hours of talking in hushed tones, of sharing the kind of silence that spoke louder than words, we found ourselves curled up together on the sofa. His arm was draped over my shoulder, holding me close, and for once, I didn't feel the need to pull away. "Why now?" I asked quietly, my voice breaking the comfortable stillness. Taehyung hesitated before answering, his fingers tracing absent patterns along my arm. Because I couldn't stay away anymore, he admitted. Every time I tried, it felt like I was leaving the best part of myself behind. I glanced up at him, searching his face for any trace of insincerity. But all I found was honesty, raw and unguarded. "And what if you leave again?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. His jaw tightened, his grip on me firming slightly. "I won't," he said with quiet determination. "Not this time. I know I've said it before, but I swear, Jungkook, I'm not going anywhere." I wanted to believe him. More than anything, I wanted to trust the conviction in his voice. But the scars of the past weren't so easily forgotten. "I'm scared," I admitted, the words spilling out before I could stop them. "I know," he said, his tone soft. "And I'll spend as long as it takes proving that you don't have to be." His words settled over me like a promise, and for the first time in years, I felt a flicker of hope, fragile and uncertain, but there nonetheless. "I'm not ready to forgive you," I said after a moment, needing him to understand. "Not yet. I don't expect you to," he replied, his thumb brushing against the back of my hand. "All I ask is for a chance to try." We sat there in silence for a long time, the weight of the past pressing down on us but no longer suffocating. The world outside seemed to fade away, leaving just the two of us in the quiet sanctuary of that small hotel room. As the first rays of dawn crept through the curtains, I found myself leaning into him, resting my head against his chest. His heartbeat was steady, reassuring, and for the first time in a long time, I allowed myself to relax. Maybe this wasn't the end of our story after all. Maybe it was the beginning of something new. Something better. And as Taehyung pressed a gentle to my forehead, I closed my eyes and let myself believe, just for a moment, that we might have a chance. As the first light of morning washed over us, painting the room in soft hues of gold, the quiet promise of a new beginning lingered between us. The path forward wouldn't be easy, old wounds still festered, trust would take time to rebuild, and the fear of history repeating itself loomed over us like a shadow. But for now, in the stillness of this fragile moment, I allowed myself to hope. This was far from the end. Our story was unfinished, and though the road ahead was uncertain, one thing was clear: we weren't done fighting for what we had lost. And maybe, just maybe, we could find our way back to each other. The soft morning light filtered through the curtains, casting a golden glow over the room. I stirred awake, the unfamiliar warmth at my side pulling me from sleep. My gaze shifted, and there he was, Taehyung, his features relaxed in slumber, his hand still loosely wrapped around mine. It felt surreal, seeing him like this. Vulnerable. At peace. For so long, I'd only known the Taehyung who was guarded, who hid his pain behind a stoic mask. But now, here he was, raw and unfiltered, as if daring me to believe in the man he had become. I carefully pulled my hand free, not wanting to wake him, and sat up. The events of the past few days weighed heavily on my mind. Was this the right choice? Could I trust him again? The floor creaked softly as I stood, crossing the room to the window. The city was alive below us, cars and people moving as if nothing had changed. Yet for me, everything felt different. "You're thinking too much again," came his voice, low and raspy from sleep. I turned, startled to see him awake, his eyes still heavy with drowsiness but focused on me. "I can't help it," I admitted, leaning against the windowsill. He sat up, running a hand through his messy hair. You don't have to figure it all out today, Jungkook. I looked at him, the sincerity in his eyes making it hard to breathe. But I need to know if this is real. If you're really here to stay this time. Taehyung stood, crossing the room in just a few steps until he was in front of me. He placed his hands on either side of the windowsill, caging me in, but not in a way that felt suffocating. Instead, it was grounding, like he was anchoring me in place. It's real, he said, his voice steady. I'm here, and I'm not going anywhere. I know I've said it before, and I know I have to prove it to you. But I will. Every single day, if that's what it takes. My heart ached at his words, the walls I'd built around it cracking bit by bit. I don't know if I can give you what you want. I'm not asking for everything all at once, he said, his tone soft but firm. Just give me a chance. Let me show you that I'm different, that we can be different. The weight of his gaze was overwhelming, and for a moment, I considered pushing him away again, retreating into the safety of my solitude. But something in me, something buried deep, wanted to believe him. Okay, I whispered, my voice trembling. One chance. His lips curved into a small smile, not triumphant, but relieved. That's all I need. As he leaned in, his forehead resting against mine, I closed my eyes, letting myself feel the warmth of his presence. This wasn't a perfect ending, and it wasn't a guarantee of forever. But it was a beginning, a fragile, tentative step towards something new. And for now, that was enough.